We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a to be alive in this great turning. We shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the way. We shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love.
Good morning. Ooh. Welcome to All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Susan Caldwell, and I'm the Director of Religious Education here. Our minister is the Reverend Barbara Jarrell, who is currently on sabbatical. And I'm going to catch my breath a little bit. We've had technical difficulties this morning. And for the first time ever, I'm going to be reading from my phone in the pulpit because my computer would not talk to the printer. So old dog, new tricks, we're good, right? Whatever your age, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, immigration status, faith path, or political persuasion, if you care to worship with us in the spirit of curiosity and respect, you are welcome. Our use of the word worship harkens back to its roots in Old English, literally or essentially meaning worthship, or the contemplation of matters of worth. Here, our matters of worth are many and varied among us, and so we're united not by an enforced doctrine or belief, but by a covenant, by the promises that we make to each other for how we will be together in community, how we will learn from each other, and how we will work together for a better world. And our board person of the day today is Susan Yellett, and she has a couple of announcements. And we thank her for being a wondrous and wonderful person.
So good morning, everybody. looks like it's going to be a pretty day today. Our really wonderful person of the month is Bob Jordan.
No, it's Sally Wood.
It's Sally now? Okay. It's Sally now, but Bob is also wonderful. Sorry. I can let you do it a couple months in a row, Bob. Yeah, Sally Wood is our board president, and she's just awesome. So she's the board person of the month. And our giveaway the plate is still the Highland Center Ministries. Okay,
yes.
Highland Center Ministries, which is over on Olive Street, and they have so many wonderful programs. If you haven't been there before, you definitely need to go and check it out. We just, the literacy volunteers are going to start having classes there now. The one that you work with, Bob, they're going to also do some stuff over there. So, and they have just all kinds of programs. So those are the two announcements. And there's food in the social hall. Somebody left a whole bunch of catfish and French fries and hush puppies and, yeah, afterwards.
Yes.
Did I forget anybody?
I don't think so. I think we're good. Game night, thank you. Game night is this Friday night. Yes, 7 to 10 in the social hall. We also want to announce that Students for Justice in Palestine has another event at LSUS, also this Friday, but they overlap a little bit, but not too much. Their event is 4 to 8, so you could easily go to the Students for Justice event, which will be a documentary and dinner, and then scoot on over here for game night. You can just have a social life. Wow, imagine. And I think that's, and speaking of Unitarian Universalists for Justice in the Middle East, we do have a book discussion event coming up on March the 9th at 3 p.m. The book is They Called Me a Lioness, and I do actually have copies. If you'd like to get one today after church, just speak to me. They're still in my car, but that is a very doable thing to get them out of my car where they need to be anyway. So now I'll just ask you, first, I do want to thank Pam Carlisle too, who is our guest speaker, our member speaker today. She is a member of All Souls. She is also a historian of note in the community, and we're delighted that she's going to share with us today. So I'll ask you now to join. Yes, thank you. She has her entourage back there, her fan club. So thank you, Natalie. I'll ask you now to join me in the spirit of worship. Let your shoulders relax down from your ears. And take a good deep breath. And you may find you can relax them even a little bit more. We come to religious community from many paths and with diverse needs. If you have come here seeking comfort, may your pain be soothed. If you have come here looking for answers, may you find new questions. If you have come here seeking purpose, may your call be awakened. If you've come here hoping to build a new way, may you learn from the stories of our past, and may the path forward open before you. James Baldwin said, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." We need our stories, especially those that are the hardest to face. For as Edmund Burke said, "In history, a great volume is unrolled for our instruction, drawing the materials of future wisdom from the past errors and infirmities of humankind. Those who would choose to hide from us Those errors and infirmities are determined to lead us on a path back through the same mistakes. May our time together today inspire us instead to choose a better way forward. And I would love some help with the chalice lighting this morning. Hoping that's a possibility. Hey, Phoebe. Hey, Ava. And Natalie, thank you. We light this chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is the church of the open mind. This is the church of the helping hands. This is the church of the loving heart. Together, with mind, hands, and heart, we care for the earth and for each other. Thank you so much. Who would like to light this morning? Thank you, Phoebe. Uh-oh. Did we lose it? Here, I'm just... Well, there we go. Got it. Thank you. In the light of the chalice this morning, we have the words of Howard Zinn. To be hopeful in bad times is not just foolishly romantic. It is based on the fact that human history is a history not only of cruelty, but also of compassion, sacrifice, courage, kindness. What we choose to emphasize in this complex history will determine our lives. If we see only the worst, it destroys our capacity to do something. If we remember those times and places, and there are so many, where people have behaved magnificently, this gives us the energy to act, and at least the possibility of sending this spinning top of a world in a different direction. And if we do act in however small a way, we don't have to wait for some grand utopian future. The future is an infinite succession of presents, and to live now as we think human beings should live, in defiance of all that is bad around us, is in itself a marvelous victory. I'd like you to rise in body or spirit and join us as you are comfortable doing so in our unison affirmation. The words will be on the screen. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve human need, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the sacred. Thus do we covenant with each other. And Bob is going to lead us in Over My Head, and the words will be on the screen.
Don't look in the book. I'm going to change the tradition just a little bit to give it swing. You know, Duke Ellington said it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. So. And you can think of this as a leader and response song too. It says, over my head I hear music in the air. That's the part I changed. You can repeat that first line. Over my head, I feel music in the air. Something like that. there's other verses here. I feel gladness in the air. Over my head, I feel gladness in the air. Over my head, over my head, I feel gladness in the air. Over my head, I feel gladness in the air. There must be a God somewhere. Angels over my head, over my head. I see angels in the air. Over my head, over my head. I see angels in the air. Over my head, over my head. I see angels in the air. There must be a God somewhere. There must be a God somewhere.
Thank you so much, Bob. Didn't mind you changing it at all. That was good. So this is going to be a short version of the story of Theodore Parker and the Crafts. If you want to hear the whole story, you need to come to the New UU session this afternoon with Bennett Upton. So first of all, I want to tell you about the Crafts. William and Ellen Craft made the most remarkable escape from slavery. It was Christmas time. This was 1850, and it was Christmas time, and at Christmas, a lot of times slaves were actually given passes, like to go and visit their relatives on other plantations or whatever. And so William and Ellen took this opportunity. She was very light-skinned, so she disguised herself as an old white man. And you'll see in the picture, there's a picture of them, how they actually looked. And then on the other side is actually a recreation of their disguise. So Ellen is disguised as this old white man, and they said she had a mouth injury, and they were going up to Philadelphia to get it treated by a famous doctor up there. And so she had a bandage wrapped around, and they said she couldn't talk because this mouth injury was so bad. So that took care of her voice, like that there might be a problem with her higher voice. So she couldn't talk at all. So William was doing all the talking, explaining that, you know, his master was very sick and they needed to get to the doctor in Philadelphia. And they, along the way, they ran into a number of kind of undercover secret abolitionists that would like approach William and say, "This is your chance, man. You know, you're with this old white man. He's not gonna be able to do anything. Hit the road, get out of there." And he was like, "No, I need to. I've got to stay with my master." And people would warn the old man. Old white people would warn the old man, "You better watch out when you get up there, because those abolitionists are going to try to convince your slave to go with them." And so they managed somehow to avoid all these people with both really good intentions and not so good intentions, and they made it. They made it initially to Philadelphia, but then they went to Boston, and there they got involved with the Reverend Theodore Parker. And you can go ahead and put it on the next slide if you haven't already. The Reverend Theodore Parker at his church. Now, at the same time, there was a law that was passed. Anybody know what the law was? Anybody remember? What was it, Jackson? Oh, no, not yet, not yet. It wasn't abolished quite yet. In fact, it was kind of the opposite. It was something called the Fugitive Slave Act, which meant that slave catchers could actually go up into the north and catch a slave who had escaped and take them back down to their masters, and they would get paid handsomely for this. So Theodore Parker was protecting the Crafts at his church, and actually he and other clergy members, they started something called the Vigilance Committee, which would basically harass the slave catchers, you know, just anytime they saw them. And Theodore Parker actually kept a pistol in the pulpit and would threaten the slave catchers if they came into his church. Because the church was supposed to be what? A sanctuary, right? Kind of like it's supposed to be now. But anyway, so they were there under the protection of Theodore Parker and his church members. But the slave catchers came to the church and were looking for them. And like I said, their church members protected them, and they just, every time the vigilance committee, every time the slave catchers would try to come to the church, the vigilance committee would just, harass the dickens out of them. And so finally, they just gave up and they went home. Now, here's the deal. We talk a lot in Unitarian Universalism these days about confronting our own past, confronting the stories that maybe, because we love the stories about Theodore Parker, we love the stories about the abolitionists, but we also have to claim as a Unitarian President Millard Fillmore, who signed the Fugitive Slave Act into law. Now, he said at the time he didn't really like slavery either, but the Congress had passed it, and he was worried if he didn't sign it into law, the Union would split. And, and we all know how that turned out later. So we have no idea, would the war have happened sooner? Some people say that, well, because this Fugitive Slave Act, even people who didn't necessarily think slavery was totally a bad thing, thought this was really, if people had escaped, they should be left alone. There started to be this kind of, a little bit at least, of moral outrage in the North. And also, when the Fugitive Slave Act was passed, people in the North had to admit that it wasn't just the South's problem. So in a way, even though it was a horrible thing that resulted in a lot of horrible things, it also may have really energized and awakened the abolitionist movement, maybe. Like I said, we can't go back and say what might have been, but what we can do, and what Ms. Pam will talk to the grown-ups about in a little bit, is we can look at the stories, even the ones that don't make us look really good, and learn from them, and learn how we go forward. What do you think? Do you think that's a good idea? Okay, yeah? Yeah. All right, let's sing. Oh, and I'm going to tell you that my computer did not talk to the printers, so there is not a lesson back there. What you might want to do is talk to them about what stories or what faith tradition they have liked the best over the past few weeks, and what they might want to present in church possibly in a couple of weeks, okay? All right, thank you. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Y'all, I have wonderful, versatile, amazing religious education teachers. And if you don't know them, you should get to know them. And if you want to be one, talk to me. We have a responsive reading. And I hope I don't murder the pronunciation, but it's by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, and requested by our speaker this morning. So you will read the parts in italics. In a house which becomes a home, one hands down and another takes up the heritage of mind and heart, laughter and tears, musings and deeds. Love, like a carefully loaded ship, crosses this gulf between the generations. Therefore, oh geez, I'm sorry. This is the problem with the telephone. Therefore, we do not neglect the ceremonies of our passage when we wed, when we die, when we are blessed with a child, when we depart and when we return, when we plant and when we harvest. Thank you. Oh, gosh. Let us bring up our children. It is not the place of some official to hand them their heritage. Thank you. You know what? I had one of those right here, too. So as I said, it is not the place of some official to hand them their heritage. If others impart to our children our knowledge and ideals, they will lose all of us that is wordless and full of wonder. Let us build memories in our children, lest they drag out joyless lives, lest they allow treasures to be lost because they have not been given the keys. We live not by things, but by the meanings of things. It is needful to transmit the passwords from generation to generation. We'll enter now into a time of prayer and silent meditation. After the silence, all who wish to do so may come forward silently to light a candle for a person who is on your mind and heart, or for an intention that is close to your heart, for a concern or for a joy. Join me now in the spirit of prayer. Spirit of life and love, knowing we come with questioning minds, open to receive the stories of our past, we remind ourselves that whatever pain we feel in the hearing pales next to the pain of those who lived through them. May we honor them with our listening. May we honor them with our retelling. May we honor them by doing all we can to build a better way forward. We now meditate on these intentions as we enter the silence.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Oh, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Oh, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth, keepers of faith, makers of peace, and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are one. Our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage.
Who are traveling, for the good health of those who may be ill. We light a candle for all the unrecognized toys, that they may be multiplied. Concerns that they may be had. I want to go ahead and introduce Pam Carlisle. Before I do, I am wondering if anybody stuck that food in the oven. All right, y'all are so good, thank you. Please welcome an All Souls member and historian who will tell us about herself what she can tell us today. So I'm going to let her have it. Thank you, Pam, so much.
Good morning. My name is Pam Carlisle. I've been a member here almost 20 years now, but time flew by. And I am very fortunate that, I have a master's degree in history, specifically public history, which is about studying history, but then learning to present it outside of academia. So I'm so fortunate that I get to do that as part of my job as local historian or outreach historian at the History Center at the Bossier Parish Library. And so a lot of what I'll be talking about is it's things that I've learned, researched, written about as part of my job. But my talk here is just me as a member of All Souls and not representing the Bossier Parish Library or the police jury. So I will begin with my historian affirmation, and those of you that know our amazing Director of Religious Education, Susan Caldwell, might recognize her influence in this. The historian's affirmation, based upon our unison affirmation. Love what you do and know that it matters, because the quest for truth is its sacrament and research is its prayer. To read possibly banned books together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to preserve human stories, to the end that all souls shall know that history is sacred in order to keep our covenants with each other. So these are interesting times to be in the field of public history, presenting history, and it's a job that I've been doing 20 years now, and again, I feel so fortunate to be able to do that for so long, and yet, you know, despite 20 years, almost every time I research something that happened and dig a little deeper, I never cease to be surprised at some of what I end up finding. My favorite history teacher in high school, Mr. William Mealy, who recently, or a few months ago or so, passed away, but I grew up in New Hampshire, but he was from Brooklyn, and he was famous for jumping up on a desk or running around the classroom after he told us something that happened, that he would then say, and then he might ask us what happened, but then he would boom out in his Brooklyn loud voice with a Brooklyn accent, why did it happen? And so I've never forgotten that, and that's how I know that history is not boring, because if you start looking for the whys, there is always more than you think. There's always more than is at the surface. So I'm going to share some examples of some different aspects of local history and local African American history, where the trails led me to places I did not expect. So most recently, for a program that I've been doing in some local nursing homes and assisted livings, and for a history column that I write for the Bossier Press Tribune some weeks, I was researching some African American teachers called Jeanes teachers, Jeanes. And that title was named after Anna Jeanes, a wealthy Quaker woman in Philadelphia who in the early part of the 20th century became concerned about education for African American children in the South. She had a considerable fortune and no heirs, And so she left her money to start what was called, what later just became to be called the Jeans Fund, or the Jeans Program. And it was to help stop the catch-22 situation in the African American schools. A lot of the parishes did not have any schools that went past, say, 8th grade for African American children. But in order to have, during segregation, in order to have a school for African American children, you had to have African American teachers. But in order to have African American teachers to teach secondary school, you had to have teachers who had gone to secondary schools, which did not exist. So that was the program that she funded. And so one of the women I was researching, Inez Smith Grisby, was the third Jeans teacher or Jeans supervisor in Bossier Parish. And as this program evolved, the Jeans teachers, they trained other teachers, they supervised other teachers so that they could learn essentially on the job. They made sure that there were summer institutes that these teachers could go to continue learning, so that even if they didn't have their degree when they started, they could be working towards it. And Inez herself was fortunate. She did have a secondary diploma because she grew up in South Louisiana and was able to attend the secondary department of New Orleans University, which was a historically black university founded by the Methodist Church. And it had merged with Gilbert Academy, a private college preparatory school that was the first school in the nation, secondary school accredited by the Southern Association of Colleges and Secondary Schools, the first for African American students. So Inez had her secondary degree, and then she attended Baton Rouge's Southern University, a historically black university founded in 1888, and received her bachelor's degree from Southern in 1936, and began her Jeans teacher supervising career in St. Mary Parish in 1936 to 1937, and then after that went to Bossier, where she was employed until her passing in 1959. So, but as I was researching her and looking up her names in local newspapers, I saw her name showed up in a list of graduates of Louisiana State University in a 1956 newspaper. And I kind of stopped short, read the name again. Yes, it was Inez Smith Grisby. I did not know of any other Inez Smith Grisbys in Bossier at that time or at any other time. And yet, what I knew of some Louisiana history, I thought, well, wait, LSU was not integrated at that time. So I did a little digging. And so it turns out that in the 1950s, when Inez was pursuing a master's degree from LSU, graduate and professional degrees, such as law or medicine, were not available at the universities or colleges for African Americans in Louisiana. There were colleges that offered bachelor's degrees. So beginning in 1950, LSU admitted black students to these programs under court order, since the school could not make the argument that separate but, quote, separate but equal academic accommodations were available elsewhere. So these orders meant that LSU admitted African American graduate students almost 15 years before it admitted African American undergraduate students. The Louisiana Weekly newspaper, an African-American newspaper in New Orleans, but that did report statewide, on September 15th, 1956, outlined in painstaking detail the LSU Board of Supervisors' conditions for still maintaining social segregation in the face of mandated educational integration for the graduate students. One example out of 21 is that the African American students could be invited to join an academic honor society if they were qualified academically, but they were barred from attending the annual banquet. President Middleton also said that religious clubs were also permitted to hold non-segregated religious meetings, but any social functions by the group had to be segregated. Also, as reported in the Louisiana Weekly, quote, Negro students will be permitted to live in the dormitories and use restroom facilities and baths in such dormitories. They can eat in university cafeterias and coffee shops and use the same eating utensils as white students. They also can use restrooms in classroom buildings, which are also used by white students, faculty, and staff. Quote, Negroes can use fountains used by white students, faculty, and staff. They can attend YMCA and YWCA meetings with white students as long as refreshments were eliminated. And they were allowed to sit with and receive diplomas with the white students at commencement. Now, when I discovered this newspaper article and was reading it, to be honest, still, the dehumanizing language in this caught me off guard, and I started to sit at my desk and cry a little bit. It still continues to surprise, and every time I can see it in detail like that. And another example that I wanted to share of something where I thought, in that instance, I thought I was just writing about a school teacher teaching school in Bossier, and it led me to that statewide story. Another story that also went farther than I believed it would was in researching, and originally this was for a World War II group that we have on a monthly basis, and we had a program about the need for blood donation during World War II, and how the blood bank that's now known as LifeShare here in Shreveport started around the time of World War II, and was one of the earliest places to have such equipment. So I had done some reading about blood banking and blood donation. So World War II was the first war in which the banking and transporting of blood products to battlefields and military hospitals saved countless lives. And it was thanks to Dr. Richard Drew, an African-American doctor who was born in Washington, D.C. in 1904. In 1928, Drew began medical school at McGill University in Montreal, Canada, and that's another story why he needed to go there, to Canada, where he was able to study with a visiting professor from Great Britain, Dr. John Beatty, an expert in blood transfusion medicine at a time when there was growing interest in blood banking, because the Nobel Prize in Physiology in 1930 was awarded for the discovery of blood group antigens, also known as blood typing, which made compatible blood transfusions possible. But in 1933, when Dr. Richard Drew received his Doctor of Medicine degree and his Master of Surgery degrees from McGill, the logistics of blood donation were still pretty much impracticable because whole blood had a shelf life of only a week. In 1938, as a Rockefeller Fellow at Columbia University's Presbyterian Hospital, in New York City, Dr. Drew studied the storage and distribution of donated blood, and he developed new and practical methods to separate blood plasma, making it have a shelf life of 2 months. Though the plasma couldn't carry oxygen as effectively as whole blood, it was invaluable to trauma victims. So after completing his dissertation, Banked Blood, a study in blood preservation, Dr. Richard Drew was tapped by the U.S. government in 1940 to be the medical director of the Blood for Britain campaign. And that campaign began when Great Britain was suffering the effects of heavy bombing from the German Luftwaffe. The U.S. knew it was only a matter of time before America entered the war, and that they could benefit from having the infrastructure and know-how in place to ship blood products overseas. So the following year, when the Blood for Britain campaign finished, the U.S. Red Cross recruited Dr. Drew to start a pilot program for blood collection and distribution that included community donation centers like storefronts, factory floors, and bloodmobiles, which became one of Dr. Drew's defining innovations. But not long after his appointment, Dr. Drew felt compelled to resign from the Red Cross. At the behest of the racially segregated U.S. military in 1942, the Red Cross implemented a policy to identify and segregate all collected blood units by race to ensure that a white patient would never receive blood from a black donor. Upon his resignation, Dr. Drew boiled his objections down to 3 reasons. 1, an official department of the government should not willfully humiliate its citizens. 2, there was no scientific basis for the practice. And 3, U.S. soldiers needed the blood. He returned home to the city of Washington, D.C. to be chief surgeon at Freedman's Hospital there. But while continuing to research and advocate for change, Dr. Drew became a sought-after speaker, and one of his very first speaking engagements after leaving the Red Cross was in May of 1942 in Shreveport, Louisiana. He spoke at the annual conference of the Louisiana Medical, Dental, and Pharmaceutical Association, later known and still known as the Louisiana Medical Association. This organization was Louisiana's African American Medical Professional Association. 1942, it was also the year when the Shreveport Memorial Blood Bank, now LifeShare, opened to serve Northwest Louisiana as one of the community's very first blood banks, using their own blood banking machine, which was a dried plasma system. Blood collected there was intended for home front use by local hospitals and was banked in case of a regional emergency. The Red Cross continued its collection for wartime use at collection centers in major cities, which at first did not include Shreveport. By the time of the Korean War, however, this wartime collection for military use did expand to Northwest Louisiana. It was anchored by a blood center in the Science Building at Centenary College in Shreveport, and a bloodmobile unit operated from this center at Centenary, and Bossier City was proud to be the recipient of this mobile unit's very first trip when it stationed itself at Bossier High School on January 11th, 1952. The visit was coordinated by V.V. Whittington, president of the Bossier Bank and Trust. By then, the Red Cross had finally ended its policy to require segregated blood donations, having done so by 1950. Following the 1964 Civil Rights Act, Louisiana was the last state to overturn blood segregation requirements in 1972. That is within my lifetime, so not at all long ago. And the final story I would like to share is when I started researching Lake Bistineau State Park. When it was for July when it was National Parks and Recreation Month. The first park, and I had discovered that the first park to open to African Americans in Louisiana, the first state park, was Lake Bistineau State Park. The lake stretches across Webster, Bossier, and Bienville parishes. The actual park is in Doyline and Webster. The present-day Lake Bistineau was formed in 1935 when a permanent dam was built across Loggy Bayou. The state park formed and opened to white park goers in 1946, while the African American section opened in 1956. According to the Louisiana State Parks desegregation history, it was after several African American children drowned in Bogfalaya River in southeast Louisiana in 1953 that both the white and African American communities recognized the need for recreational swimming facilities for African Americans. The Parks and Recreation Committee established the, quote, Negro Advisory Committee, which met in Baton Rouge on January 5th in 1954. The members agreed to the establishment of park facilities in New Orleans, Monroe, Lake Charles, and Shreveport areas. Lake Bistineau State Park, the one near the city of Shreveport, developed areas for African Americans and whites on different sides of the lake with separate entrances, facilities, and beaches. The African American section was locally referred to as the Colored State Park. The area for white park goers had swimming, fishing, picnicking, cabins, and camping, and lodging for group camps. The, quote, colored area had swimming, fishing, and day-use picnic spots, but no overnight accommodations. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled in 1955 that public park segregation was unconstitutional, but Louisiana countered in 1956 with a statute that all public parks, recreational centers, playgrounds, etc., would be segregated, quote, for the protection of the public health, morals, and the peace and good order in the state, and not because of race. According to William O'Brien's book, Landscapes of Exclusion, State Parks and Jim Crow in the American South, it wasn't until the Civil Rights Organization and the NAACP and its Legal Defense Fund began filing lawsuits that southern states attempted to equalize their parks. This may be why in 1959 an additional overnight group lodging structure was in the works for Bistineau. Although, quote, even modest attempts by state and federal agencies to provide black citizens with decent parks in accessible locations succumbed to organized white opposition and bureaucratic indifference, according to the state parks desegregation history. And tragically, Lake Bistineau State Park was a textbook example of this opposition. The group camp building for African Americans on Lake Bistineau was bombed on April 24, 1962. It was part of a string of bombings around the lake. And I had never heard of this until I was researching the park history. It was part of a string of bombings around the lake, including the African American St. James Masonic Lodge and the private camp house belonging to Shreveport dentist and civil rights activist Dr. C.O. Simpkins Sr. Prior to the bombing of his camp house, which was located in the Bossier Parish part of the lakeshore, Dr. Simpkins' Shreveport home had also been firebombed. Following the Bossier incident, insurance for Dr. Simpkins' home and dental business became unattainable because of the rise in the premiums, and threats to his and his young family's safety could not be ignored. So Dr. Simpkins left Shreveport and ultimately moved to New York, where he stayed for 26 years. He did return later, and though he has passed away, he continues to be known as one of the premier civil rights leaders in this area. And I believe you can find a picture of him right behind, where he is shown right behind Dr. Martin Luther King. I believe crossing the bridge into which bridge? The Edmund Pettus Bridge. So those are just a few of the stories where I thought I was maybe researching one thing and found out way more than I ever imagined. And to me, and they're all things that even though I study local history, and yet until I started digging, they're all things that I had not heard of, that I'm sure many folks had not heard of. And so it is why I believe it is important to have public history, to share history, to have research as my prayer, and the quest for truth as our sacrament. And it is why there is a saying that all history is local history, in that it happened here, the ramifications were felt here. And of course, as we study here as Unitarian Universalists, we learn about the interdependent web. What happens to one affects all. So it is also why I appreciate coming here and knowing that studying Black history is studying American history. It's all of our history to know. Thank you.
And Pam's going to stay up here and help our choir members lead. We Are, if you heard you say Barnwell sing it earlier, that's the song we're going to sing.
Do you want me up there or here?
It's 1051 in the teal hymnal, if you'd rather use that. But the words will also be on the screen. And choir, we're going to take the short little repeats at the beginning and end, but we're not going to take the long repeat. In other words, just sing what words are in them. Or if the words are good. And I'll do just a brief introduction. Oh, well, you may rise in body or spirit.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. Our mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are.
And thank you again, Pam. We appreciate it. Some stories begin once upon a time or long, long ago, but other stories begin here and now. Those stories don't always have a clear direction. Sometimes they don't even have a clear beginning. What they do have is possibility. Those are stories still in the making, stories that have yet to be fully written, stories with the potential to create change for good or ill. We won't know how the story ends until we get there, but we can decide what words we use to write those stories. Words like hope, kindness, gratitude, peace, courage, perseverance, and above all else, love. Go in peace, or preferably stay in peace and help us eat this enormous amount of food. And thank you so much for being here.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going. Heaven knows, but we know we are going. Heaven knows where we are going. Heaven knows where we are going. Heaven knows where we are going. And we will get there. Knows how we will get there, but we know within it will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know within. Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, we are going. Heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know within. It'll be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there.